I heard recently that there was Peter Dunworth, which I'm sure you know. He was saying that he heard of two of the major banks in Australia already putting together frameworks to custody Bitcoin. Are you familiar with any of that, or can you give us some insight into banking?
I can't say too much because...
Is there any way that you know getting money into these exchanges?
There's really no way around it, man, unfortunately. Australia's losing, and will lose, a lot of tax revenue over the next 10 years because they're scaring people out of the country.
How did you manage to get Michael Saylor at your convention? What was the secret?
We just annoyed the hell out of him, basically. I look at Bitcoin as a way for everyone to create sustainable and generational wealth.
I'm Matthew Fraser, and this is Crypto Collective. After making millions with Amazon and e-commerce, I realized that if I was starting again today, crypto would be my first choice. I'm here to help you take your first steps and build real wealth. Ready to set yourself up for life? Let's go. 2024 speech was about vision and conviction. Now, would you say in the current climate, are you still holding vision and conviction?
Always, man. I've been holding vision and conviction for almost 10 years. So that's never going to waver for me. I think most people in the industry that have been in the industry for a while, and most people that I speak to anyway, have got quite solid conviction in Bitcoin and in blockchain and in what everyone's building here. So it's only those that I see entering the market that tend to lose some of that conviction and some of that vision. But that's normal. I mean, once you've been orange pilled, you sort of get that conviction back anyway. I think most people have to go through a bear market to really understand what this market is and what the technology's for and what's been created for us all.
Well, would you say then, Dave, that considering we're now down to 28% from the all-time high in Bitcoin, do you think we're going into a bear market, or do you think it's just really just a dip in the bull market?
No, I don't think we're going into a bear market yet. I mean, what was it? This time last year, we were sitting at around $40,000, $50,000 Bitcoin. To be complaining about $80,000 Bitcoin is probably a bit silly in a 12-month turnaround. So I get that a lot of the hype around 100K BTC is when a lot of people started buying in, and now they're down. So that's the nature of the game. It's a zero-sum game. If someone's buying, someone's selling. So, I understand the hurt people feel. I've been through it. I went through it, numerous times over, where you've bought in and then the price has dropped, and you've just got to hold strong and just be patient. And I think the old saying of time in the market versus timing the market has never been more important than now. So I don't think we're in a bear market. I think we're still giga bullish, if I could say that. There's too much fundamentals happening around the world. I mean, I'm a technical trader. I trade on both technicals and fundamentals, and the fundamentals behind Bitcoin at the moment are just so strong and stronger than they've ever been. So I just don't see how we can go into a full-blown bear market just yet. I think we're just getting started.
Wow. I mean, what did you make of the Trump summit just recently, Dave? What was your sort of wrap up of that?
I think it's good. I think it's a first step in the right direction. I mean, people were disappointed that Trump didn't announce that he was going to start buying, shitloads of Bitcoin. But I think if anything, it shows an element of caution, which is actually a good thing. Long term, I think that if any world leader just FOMOs into Bitcoin, as much as we'd love that, for those of us that have been in the market a long time, I think that showing some restraint and showing some caution could be a good thing long term, especially when it comes to getting other governments on side. So I think that like anyone that enters the market, the US government will hold a certain amount of Bitcoin, and then eventually they'll get some FOMO and they'll start buying some more. So I just think it's step number one of a 10-step program. Yeah.
Did you think the fact that they've actually separated out, I guess, Bitcoin separate as a strategic reserve to, say, altcoins was a positive stance?
For Bitcoin, definitely. I think having a strategic reserve for altcoins is, to put it politely, ill-informed. So
that was nice.
If I could say it's a stupid decision, then I'll say that. But look, altcoins and Bitcoin are chalk and cheese. Bitcoin has become a class of its own outside of cryptocurrency, in my opinion. So having a Bitcoin strategic reserve absolutely makes sense. Having altcoins included in that, as I said, it's ill-informed. It's a silly decision as far as I'm concerned, and it shouldn't be included in the reserve at all. But, I don't think it will be long-term. I think that, as I said, it's step one of step 10, and I think that he'll have a lot smarter people look at the situation, and hopefully cooler heads will prevail and smarter heads will prevail, and we'll just be a Bitcoin reserve.
Yeah. So they're talking, I saw today that the government's trying to refinance the debt, right? So they're trying to bring down interest rates. And then, of course, then hopefully we'll get some sort of liquidity and more money into the market, which will push the price up. Is that what you're thinking that's going to happen?
I do. I think that overall we're in a market correction, and it's quite normal for those that are watching and listening. It's, Bitcoin retraces 30 to 50% pretty frequently in the big scheme of things. So it's not uncommon. And I think that's all that's happening now is we're doing a liquidity hunt. We're looking for more money in the market. I think that where we are now is probably going to be a local bottom, touch wood, fingers crossed, all those things. Mm-hmm. And from here, we'll probably range for the rest of March to, 90K and then April to sort of 90, 95 and so on from there. But if we can create some more liquidity in the market, then obviously people are going to start using their expendable or disposable income or extra money there to start buying some Bitcoin. I have no doubt about that.
Yeah. Let me ask you, Dave, when you've been through so many cycles, when you come to these types of dips, do you still buy into these dips after so many years in the market?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Are you keeping cash reserves at some point in order to put into these types of dips? Is that your strategy?
My overall strategy is stack sats, right? So I'm not a Bitcoin maxi in terms of I will not touch altcoins, but I'm a Bitcoin maxi in terms of it's the only crypto that really has the fundamentals to become, a global adopted currency of sorts, or a store of value, or a property, or whatever you want to call it, whatever your perception is on it. Mm-hmm. However, I will use altcoins to stack more Bitcoin. So I'll actively trade altcoins. I'll move into USDT. And when the time is right, I'll buy more Bitcoin. That's the strategy that I use to stack sats in a sense. Altcoins have their place for me, but it's not because I like them or I want to own them or anything like that. It's just to grow more Bitcoin. So when I do have USDT, if Bitcoin's in a good buying region, I'll buy more Bitcoin, 100%.
Mm-hmm. And so outside of trading altcoins in order to stack more sats, are there any other things that you do in order to stack more sats, or is that the primary source?
No, I do some margin trading. I'll leverage trade, but the problem is timing. So I don't have a lot of time to do a lot of it these days. So I will play bigger swings. So I'm looking at 1 day to 1 week charts. I don't do the day-to-day trading or intraday trading anymore. So yeah, but I'll do both.
Okay, I mean, I'm going through this phase now, Dave, because I've been predominantly a property investor. Okay, so I've made a lot of money through online business, mainly through Amazon and Shopify, things like that around the world. I put a lot of that money into property initially, and I think because in Australia we're so ingrained into property is the thing, and I was very outside of the crypto space. I'm fresh compared to where you've been. I just got here. I just arrived. And,
welcome.
Pardon me? Was that
welcome.
What you say? Thank you very much. It's great to be here. And I've just learned so much just over the past few years. And one of the things I've come to, because I've gone really deeper down the rabbit hole of Bitcoin, is I've now started to sell property to buy Bitcoin. I'm liquidating. I'm basically just doing the numbers. I'm looking at where property is going to go over the next 20 years and then comparing it to where even, Bitcoin in the last 12 months at 120% roughly, right, over 2024, and just selling those properties and putting that money into Bitcoin. With your journey, have you, I guess, veered off from Bitcoin and diversified into property as well? Or you had property and sold property? Where do you sit on that?
I hold both. So I've got property and Bitcoin, but I've not sold one for the other. I think the smartest way to look at Bitcoin is to view Bitcoin as property itself. And Michael Saylor says that as well. And if you start to view Bitcoin as property rather than currency, then I think the mindset will be right in terms of how long will you hold your property for before selling it. If you sell it ever, is it an inheritance play? Is it something that you're going to leave for your kids? Is it something that you want to retire on? Will you sell a portion of it? View Bitcoin more as a property than a currency, and I think that you'll have stronger conviction, longer vision, and in the end, you'll come out on top far better. And of course, you'll come out on top far better than owning physical property. So yeah, I think if you view Bitcoin as property, effectively to me, what you just said was that you're selling property to buy a better property. Mm-hmm. And property that's going to yield a higher return year on year. And ultimately, when you reach an age of retirement, if you decide to sell that property to fund your retirement, I think you're going to have a lot more there than what you will if you only invest in property. Even if you look at the rental income over 30, 40 years or whatever it is, I still think you'll yield higher return on Bitcoin as an investment of property than actual physical property.
Yeah. Well, there's one other thing, and I was just talking to Dave just before we started recording about the cyclone that's just hit the eastern side of Australia. And the funny thing was, Dave, you know, I'm running around frantically. I've got a restaurant that I also have as well, so I'm sort of dealing with that, with closures and power outages. I've then got some other commercial property, so I'm going to the commercial property. I'm like, okay, is it going to get flooded and this, that, and the other, and pulling things off the floor. And then I was talking to someone. I said, you know what? I'm running around like with my head cut off, doing all this stuff. And of course, some staff issues and things like that as well. The only thing I haven't had to worry about was Bitcoin, which That's then gave me another reason why I should buy more Bitcoin.
Just ate more of that orange pill, my man.
Yeah, just like, you know, like, no, more Bitcoin is the answer. In my situation, though, I also have a wife. So I brought my wife along the journey as well. And she's heavily into Bitcoin, but probably not as where I'm at. Because I'd say, look, just sell everything and just get rid of everything, dematerialize everything in the house and put it into Bitcoin. Dave, is there a point where you say enough Bitcoin is enough?
No. Simple answer, no. I mean, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. Something like this comes up once in a generation, maybe even 2, 3, 4 generations. It's a revolution that you get once a century at best. So acting now could not only set yourself up, but could set up a whole bloodline for a century to come. So this opportunity won't come back. There won't be another one like this for another 100 years. And I couldn't even imagine what that next opportunity could be, because Bitcoin is the finest type of money that exists, if you could call it money. So I don't see how you could really improve on that. So whatever the next big thing is in 100 years' time, who knows? But something like this only comes up, you know, once every couple of generations. And I think that anyone that's watching should seize it as much as practically possible. And I think most people get a bit disheartened or off-put because they think, oh, Bitcoin's worth, you know, 150,000 Australian dollars. I can't afford a Bitcoin. And it's seriously one of the most common misconceptions that I've seen over the years, and they don't realize you can buy $10 worth of Bitcoin, you can buy $100 worth of Bitcoin, and you can invest your super into Bitcoin now in Australia through self-managed super schemes and things like that. So a good friend of mine reached out to me, what was it, nearly 2 years ago, 18 months ago, and said, Dave, tell me about your Bitcoins. And he said, I want to...
You've named them, is that it? Is that what he means?
Yeah, pretty much. And he said, I'm thinking about moving some super into it. He said, my superannuation is done like 3% a year. It's just kind of sitting there. It's losing money. Sometimes it's gaining money. And he pulled half of his super out and he put it into Bitcoin. And within 18 months, he doubled his money. Wow. And he said, Dave, thanks. Now I can actually afford retirement, because he is almost at that retirement age. And I just thought, wow, what a huge result from a single decision. So, you know, if he could do that in 18 months, imagine what people can do in 10, 20, 30 years' time if they make a decision now.
Well, I've done the numbers, Dave. And just so you know, I actually have gone down, as I said before, I've gone down the rabbit hole of Bitcoin. And when I first started, I invested some money into getting some training. So I had some idea of what I was getting into and, you know, how to protect the money and, you know, cold storage, what's all this sort of stuff. And I remember a guy telling me at the time who was a trainer, he said, all of my superannuation is in Bitcoin. Yeah. And I was like, holy shit, dude. And at the time I was thinking, you're crazy. Right, because even back then, I was still thinking diversification more, right? Oh, no, I'm going to keep my super separate. I'm going to have some Bitcoin and I'll have some properties. And I'm pleased to say that in the last probably about 18 months ago, I transferred all of my super over into Bitcoin. I set up a self-managed super fund, moved it all into Bitcoin. Now there's other people watching this going, that Matthew guy is freaking crazy, right? Yeah. He's nuts. And but I will say though is I think the last check, I think it was up about 50%, right? And if I looked at where superannuation has gone, I actually did do a check. I think it was about 8% over 2024, right? So I'm well into it.
That's if you've got a good fund too. I mean, not everyone's doing 8%. Some people are still sitting at a break even over 5 years on their super fund.
Right. Well,
if they weren't doing contributions, they'd be sitting where they were 5 years ago.
Yeah, and I guess the thing you have to think about too is the hurdle rate, right? You've got to get above the hurdle rate, and 8% ain't getting above the hurdle rate as well. So let me ask you then, Dave, have you done the same thing? Have you moved super into Bitcoin?
Yes. Not everything. So I'm not balls to the wall like your friend. Only a portion of it. Because, as you said before, diversification is smart. It's kind of like when you're growing up, your parents tell you to get a trade, right? It's one of those things where it's kind of drilled into you. Diversify, don't put all your eggs in one basket. It's kind of a cautious decision that everyone should make with their super. But, as time goes on, I think I'll be 100% into Bitcoin eventually.
Right.
It's just...
Well, maybe I've made a mistake that day because I've personally moved all of my wife and my super into Bitcoin. And the further I go down, I'm thinking about not diversifying, right? So I'm thinking selling properties and really...
I'm with you 100%. I don't want to do it either, but I'm also married.
You've got to bring the other person on the journey, right? And you got to have cash flow as well and all sorts of other things. And you talked about, orange pilling, which I think is definitely, the reason why I even started the show with Crypto Collective is because I found that I was talking to a lot of people about Bitcoin and crypto, more Bitcoin. And I wanted to just continue talking about it and to more people. And one of the things that you've done though in your life, you've taken it to a whole new level. Not only have you done your education training, your program, but also you've created the Australian Crypto Convention, which is probably the ultimate of orange pilling because you're able to put on a convention, bring a whole bunch of people together. Can you tell us about that, how it started for you? Because you've come from plumber to now founder of the Australian Crypto Convention. Hey, just quickly, if you're ready to dive deeper into crypto and Bitcoin and build real wealth, join my free Crypto Collective community. It's where I share exclusive insights and strategies and live discussions to help you succeed, whether you're a beginner or scaling your portfolio. Click on the link in the description and join us today. Now back to the episode.
Yeah, it's been a pretty big journey. So I went from carpentry into crypto, basically. I owned a gym as well. So I owned one of the 24/7 gym franchises, and I've done a few things. And starting ACC, it was a case of I wanted to go to a big crypto event, and there wasn't one. And I'd look overseas, and I could see that overseas was doing crypto events all over the place, and there was nothing in Australia. And as you said, I'd started an education program and I was teaching people by the hundreds, which is amazing, but it just wasn't big enough. And I thought, well, if we could start a huge event here in Australia, we could bring thousands of people in. And to be honest, I expected, a couple thousand people at best to show up. And this was back in 2022. And our first event, we had nearly 5,000 people turn up on the Gold Coast, and it just totally blew my mind. And I knew we could do it. I wasn't convinced of it myself in a way. Mm-hmm. So it was amazing to see 5,000 people come through the door. And that was during the big NFT boom as well. So a lot of the people that were there were actually bought in through the NFT side of things rather than the currency side of things. Okay. Which I found quite interesting because I don't get into NFTs. I've never got into NFTs. It's not really my thing. So I was learning new things as well because we had over 100 speakers there, and some of them were on stage talking about NFTs, and some of the community were running around talking about NFTs. So I think the biggest thing to understand in the community or in your journey is that there's always something to learn, and that the industry moves so fast that even the self-proclaimed experts still have something to learn on a daily basis. So, there's new technology coming out of the industry every day, every week, and education is going to be key. And the other thing that I found was so many people would message me on Facebook or Twitter or whatever and say, please help, I've lost money, or can you teach me how to do this, or, just drowning in, I bought some Bitcoin or I bought some altcoins and now it's gone backwards. So I wanted to educate people because everyone kept calling it a scam. Mm-hmm. And Bitcoin's a scam. And to be honest, it was driving me insane that people couldn't really see what Bitcoin was and what crypto was. And just like TradFi world, there's scams, of course, but there's scams everywhere. Yeah. So I just wanted to educate people and show people that it's real and that it's tangible, and that you can talk to the businesses that are involved in the space, and you can meet the people that are building these cryptocurrencies and these protocols, and show them that it's a tangible, real industry, just like any other tech industry, and try and instill some confidence in people. And I think we've done a really good job of that so far. And, we work with some of the biggest brands in the world that come to the event, and, it's really good to see that they get to talk to their customers and meet the people that use their services and vice versa.
I think it's incredible what you've done because you talked about balls to the wall with self-managed super. It's balls to the wall putting on a convention because you're putting a lot of time and money on the line, and you're hoping it's going to be a huge success. And it looks that the past ones have been massive successes. You've even had, I noticed, Michael Saylor, who's certainly someone who I look up to and follow religiously. I would probably say zealot now. And I've got to ask you though, Dave, Do you have Michael Saylor's phone number?
I do.
Have you thought about
Michael,
this?
Michael is an absolute gentleman. He's one of the nicest guys you'll ever talk to. His conviction in Bitcoin is unparalleled by anyone. And he loves it so much that he just wants to spread the word. He just wants to educate people as much as possible. And he does it every day. You see him on news programs every single day, podcasts every single day. Like, the guy is running a multi-million-dollar business, but he's still got time to educate people. So, yeah, I really have a lot of respect for Michael. He's a nice guy.
He's a workaholic. Now, tell me, how did you manage to get Michael Saylor at your convention?
Tenacity.
Yeah. What was the secret?
We just annoyed the hell out of him, basically. It's like any big name speaker. You've just got to grind away, keep contacting them, and just saying, look, we've got a huge community here in Australia that love the industry and love crypto and love Bitcoin, and they'd love to hear from people like you. And last year we had Charles Hoskinson and Raoul Pal and Rachel Conlon from Binance and a few other big names, and you've just got to really hound them and try to convince them to come and speak at your event. The first one was the hardest one, and I've been pretty fortunate because over the years I've built a lot of contacts in the space, and before I even launched the ACC in 2022, I had a lot of industry partners and industry friends and industry connections, so it did make it a bit easier for me than what it could have been for someone else. And then as we've run the event each year, that contact list grows and that network grows. And if I don't know someone, then you can generally call a friend, and a friend of a friend knows them, or so it's easier to get in contact with some of these people now than what it was back in 2022. But yeah, ultimately it's just having the right network, having the right people around you, and annoying the hell out of everyone.
Yeah, well done on that. I want to ask you as well, because you had someone there from the political spectrum at your last, I think it was your last conference, which was Senator Andrew Bragg. Can you tell me more so from a political perspective, because we've seen so much now come out of the USA. But Dave, what is happening in Australia when it comes to Bitcoin and crypto?
Not a lot, I don't think. We've got people like Senator Bragg that is pro-crypto, and I know that the folks from DECA, once known as Blockchain Australia, they're working hard with government to try and have some pro-crypto regulation, and at the very least have the conversation about it. Mm-hmm. And Amy Rose, who's the CEO of there, a good friend of mine, she's doing a great job. So I think that we are seeing some progress in that sense, but it's going to take time. It's going to take years, in my opinion. And without people like Amy Rose and organisations like DECA, those conversations just won't happen. So at the moment, we're sort of stalled. We're behind the US. I'm hoping that the US will influence some Australian politics around cryptocurrency. It's already influencing UK and other parts of the world. So I'm hoping that Australia will follow suit. I mean, what's the saying when America catches a cold, Australia sneezes, or some shit like that? Right. So I think that whatever the US does, Australia will follow suit eventually, but it's going to take some time. But at the moment, there's really not a lot happening at all, unfortunately.
It's really disappointing, Dave, because you see what's going on around the world. And it's not just the USA, it's places like El Salvador and Bhutan, who's, they're mining their own Bitcoin. I'm sitting here thinking, where is the leadership in Australia to sort of look forward thinking? And it's great that you actually had Senator Andrew Bragg come to one of the conventions and speak, I guess. Is there any other political thought leaders or coming in any? I know you've got another convention coming up 22nd to the 23rd of November in 2025. That's in Sydney. Any other political leaders coming to that one?
We're hoping to have some speakers from ASIC come through. And for me, a big reason for that is there's a lot of grey area to operate in for businesses in Australia. So especially DCEs, exchanges. Mm-hmm. So I think that people like Andrew Bragg lobbying for pro-crypto regulation will help influence ASIC's decisions around a certain number of topics. So we are hoping to have some ASIC representation this year, which I think will really help a lot of the businesses that come to our event, because we've got almost 100 exhibitors, which are businesses, Australian businesses that come to the event. But we've got, last year nearly 10,000 people came through the door. Say, a third of them or 20% of them at least own some kind of a business. And most people that own a business that are also in the crypto, they're looking at other entry pathways into crypto businesses. But the problem we face in Australia is that the tax laws and the ASIC laws are so strict, people are too scared to operate. So they're setting up overseas instead. So much Australian talent is going to Singapore or Seychelles or Caymans, and because there's no way for them to operate a business here in Australia, and the tax laws are so strict and
high.
Tax implications are so high. Yeah. So I think that if we can get a lot of these decision makers in a room together and just nut it out, so to speak, we hopefully will prompt more conversation around it and get the better results.
Yeah, one of the things I think, which is great, Dave. Ultimately, I think Bitcoin is freedom money. I love the fact that it's decentralized. I think coming out of the pandemic of recent years really opened my eyes to being, I guess, not under the thumb of the government from every level. And I wonder if there's a sense in Australia from a government point of view is that's perhaps why they don't want to go down this route. Look, maybe it might take a leadership change in Australia, a prime minister change from the top down. We've got an election coming up now in May this year. I know Andrew Bragg sits on the conservative side of that with under Peter Dutton. So look, maybe we'll see some different policies come out down that way. I wanted to switch into banking, Dave. I heard recently that there was Peter Dunworth, which I'm sure you know. He was saying that he heard of 2 of the major banks in Australia already putting together frameworks to custody Bitcoin. Are you familiar with any of that, or can you give us some insight into banking?
I can't say too much because
it's top secret.
A little bit.
Yeah.
So we work with banking partners through the event as well. So we talk to all the big 4 banks.
Okay.
The banks come and they speak at our event. We've got a lot of, I suppose, mutual industry connections and things like that. So I do know a little bit about it, and I do know that it's actually been happening for a number of years, probably 3 or 4 years now. The top 4, at the very least, have been exploring cryptocurrency and blockchain technology and building out those custody frameworks. So I can confirm it is happening. The problem with the banking is that they get 10 steps forward, 12 steps back. So the staff attrition rate no one sticks around long enough to see it through, I suppose you could say.
Right. So you're losing that connectivity, the sort of ongoing.
Well, I think they get forward-thinking staff member that starts to implement a strategy around blockchain and crypto, and then that forward-thinking staff member will disappear or go somewhere else, and then they're back at square one again and they're starting over. So that seems to be what happens a lot from what I can tell. Mm-hmm. So, you've got entire teams that have been built in some of these banks to, I suppose, grow or learn more about the blockchain technology and how they can implement that into banks. And then those teams are basically dispersed into different areas, and then the teams are rebuilt again, and it just seems to be the same cycle over and over again. So it will happen eventually, there's no doubt about it. And when it does, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know if you'll actually hold your own coins or if the bank will hold it and just give you an IOU of it. I don't know how it's going to work just yet, but I know that they're actively building something like that.
Interesting that you said the major banks are coming to your convention. Is there any backlash? Because just from a retail perspective, and you would know this, and from I guess many of your clients, I've seen this in my little community. People I talk to, they get ready. They might say they've taken all their super out, they've put it into a bank. It might be $200,000 or $300,000. They're now prepared to put this into an exchange to buy Bitcoin. They then do their first transfer. It's rejected, right? It's blocked. They're going to spend days and days trying to get through all this rigmarole about why they were allowed to transfer money in. Have you seen anything in that space that could give people some sense of relief that maybe the tide's turning? Or is there something inside that like a bank that that, hey, this is the bank to deal with?
It's incredibly frustrating. Everyone is suffering the same problem. Everyone's in the same boat when it comes to onboarding money into crypto. I've got my own theories around why, but they're theories, they're not fact. But I think that with more pro-crypto regulation, we're going to have more pro-crypto banking. And the fact that we're going to have, that we've got banks building out frameworks for this already is a good thing in terms of how much money you'll be allowed to onboard. And I don't like the term allowed, because it's your money. You should be allowed to spend it on whatever you feel like. So that it's one of those things that really irks me. That and debanking as well. Debanking's a huge problem in the crypto space, and I don't think that's going to go anywhere anytime soon either. But ultimately, the fact that banks are building out the frameworks, then eventually the problem will go away. It just means, or it depends on how will it look later. So, okay, sure, you can now put $100,000 per day into crypto, but we're actually going to hold your crypto and your assets, and you can't move it to cold storage. Is that how they're going to do it? Are they going to make interest off it? Who knows what that looks like just yet. But I don't think it's going to be in our favour in any way.
Is there any way that you know getting money into these exchanges? What are you telling your clients?
There's really no way around it, man, unfortunately. Some banks are better than others, I think. And it changes frequently as well. I think Bank of Melbourne maybe was one that people didn't have problems with. The Big Four, everyone's had problems with the Big Four. Maybe Greater Building Society. I think they were a good one at some point. But it changes so frequently that it's kind of hard to keep up with. And outside of a peer-to-peer transaction, there's really not much else you can do. I mean, the only way to do it in Australia is to purchase through a bank, through your card or through a bank transfer. There's offshore exchanges that people can use. So some people will use their credit cards or their Visa card or debit cards to buy crypto on offshore exchanges, which I don't think have the same restrictions, but you're then running the risk of putting your money into a foreign entity, and if something does go wrong, there's really no repercussions or any way to get your money back. So you just got to be careful and weigh the risks.
Yeah. Dave, you've been in the industry for such a long time. There's people that I see around me though who have also accumulated a lot of wealth through crypto who are leaving Australia for mainly tax reasons. And I guess they don't like the restrictions that they have in Australia. I want to say having a plan B or having a second passport or moving outside into Dubai or some of these places. Is that something that you've considered?
Yeah, definitely. I think Australia needs to catch up with some other regions of the world in terms of taxing crypto. The tax rates are just stupidly high.
That was being nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that, again, it really burns me up, to be honest. But yeah, I think you're right. A lot of people are moving to Dubai or Malta or, Seychelles even. There's a lot of other countries that don't have as high tax or in some cases any tax like Dubai on cryptocurrencies. Trump's saying that he's going to make the US a tax haven for cryptocurrencies. And if that's something that actually comes into fruition, then maybe Australia will, to a degree, follow suit. Even Singapore, a lot of people are going to Singapore. I think Singapore's only doing about a 10% tax. So Australia's losing and will lose a lot of tax revenue over the next 10 years because they're scaring people out of the country. So, while they're cashing in now, it'll sort of shoot themselves in the foot later on.
So what's the reason then you've stayed in Australia? What's kept you here?
My family's here. Work is here. Everyone's here. So, yeah, I mean, there's really no other reason apart from that. If I didn't have what I have here in terms of people around me, I would have been gone a long time ago.
Lifestyle and family has kept you here. I've got children, they go to local schools, there's sort of things that you think about. Yeah, family as well.
Yeah.
The people who I know.
Right. We've discussed moving overseas.
Anywhere in particular?
Not really. My wife's family is from Malta, so that's come up a couple of times. Dubai, just anywhere really. I'm not really too fussed.
Not fussed.
But the kids at school, our parents and my in-laws and all the families here. So it'd have to be something pretty drastic to make me want to move overseas at this point.
Yeah. Talking about family and you've got children. Do you think about legacy for your family through Bitcoin, and what does that look like practically?
I do. I mean, I look at Bitcoin as a way for everyone to create sustainable and generational wealth. And as I said at the start of the call, this opportunity only comes up once every 100 years if you're lucky. So I look at it as not just a superannuation for myself or a way to retire comfortably or anything like that. I look at it as, what can this be in 30, 40, 50 years? How much can it grow and how much can it benefit my kids and their kids? And I look at it in a much bigger picture than I think most people do. Mm-hmm. And for me, it's kind of like a big part of the reason I do the convention and a big part of the reason I speak at events and I suppose spread the word of Bitcoin. It's almost like I'm going to get in trouble for this. It's almost like a Jehovah's Witness knocking on your door, right? So they knock on the door because they believe in something. Yeah. Whether you believe in it or not, it's irrelevant. They knock on your door because they believe that they've got this divine power that everyone can benefit from. And for me, that's Bitcoin. Bitcoin is that religion. Bitcoin is that divine power that I want everyone to win. I want everyone to get the benefits from. Because, like you said before, COVID brought to light a lot of things for a lot of people. Anyone that knows me and anyone that's watched me on a podcast in the past probably knows that I love a good conspiracy theory. And the government has far too much control over us. as a people. And, as you said before, Bitcoin as a freedom money, it gives us an ability to claw back some of that freedom and some of that control ourselves. So it doesn't happen with 10 people or 100 people or 10,000 people. It happens when the entire country comes together and uses Bitcoin. So for me, it's bigger than just myself. It's bigger than you and me. It's a movement that deserves the attention of everyone.
Yeah, that's so well put. I completely agree with you. I'm now thinking very much like you, thinking in 40 years' time, when my children are basically almost 50, what's the world going to look like? And I think Bitcoin is the answer, that encompasses that and legacy. And I'm also talking to people about putting something out there that's more than them. So, people talk about leaving something for a charity, for example. And I said, well, why don't you sanction some Bitcoin for the future for that charity when you pass away and you're forgotten about, and XYZ charity now has Bitcoin that you've left to them for in perpetuity, which I think is really, really powerful when you start thinking outside of your own self and giving back to others. Dave, you're obviously doing a lot of giving back in the community with the Australian Crypto Convention. What's in store for 2025? Can you give us some insight to that? Because I'd love to help promote it.
Well, I mean, for this year, our focus is just refining and making the event as sophisticated as possible. We've grown the event year on year by about 50% each year, which is wonderful. I'd love to see over 10,000 people come through the doors this year. That's a personal goal for me. But in terms of what we're focusing on, it's about refining and sophisticating. So we want high quality speakers, high quality educators up on stage, so that if we can get even 5,000 people that are new to the industry that are there to learn, they're going to be learning from the very best. And that's the goal for me. Of course, we've got the parties and we've got all the fun stuff, and we've got the crypto bros, and it's a good.
You got the XRP army there?
Oh, they're everywhere, man.
Oh, you got to watch out for them.
They're everywhere.
They're deadly.
Last year, I think we had about 10 side events where companies like Coinbase or Binance, they'll put on a party around the event on sort of the Thursday or the Friday or even the Saturday night. We had the official after party on the Sunday last year with SwiftX. We hired a huge super yacht, 800 people. We did a big drone show and all sorts of really cool stuff. So if you're thinking about coming, it's in Sydney again. We do have a super yacht again. It's the biggest super yacht in the country.
No, okay.
It's a lot of fun, man. And I mean, we've got fun activations at the event, bull rides, and we had a dive tank last year. Prizes is a big thing. So the big dive tank last year, I think there was about 120 grand in prizes in the bottom of it. People dive down and grab a handful of chips.
There's one Bitcoin at the bottom of it.
There was a lot of diamond rings and all sorts of stuff. So that was run by a company called WayX out of Sydney, and they put on a really cool activation with the dive tank last year. So there's heaps of prizes. This year we're already talking with a lot of companies. I think we're up to about $2.5 million in prizes to go out this year, which is our biggest pool yet so far, and we're going to continue to grow that throughout the year. So there's something for everyone, man.
There's a lot. It sounds like it's going to be absolutely amazing. I just want to say to people who are watching this now, if you go back to YouTube and look at the 2024 convention, you get an idea of how successful that was. I mean, you are not playing small here. It is incredible, and it's so professionally put together. Now, I've got something for you, Dave, and this is a bit of a conspiracy for you. See, you're one step away from Michael Saylor. Michael Saylor is one step away from President Trump. Okay. Speak to Michael, he speaks to President Trump, he pushes the price up, he puts out an announcement, the price goes through the roof, there's an all-time high, okay? All-time high brings more people to the Australian Crypto Convention.
Hang on a second, give me a sec. I like your style.
Thanks, Dave. Really appreciate you coming on board. I think we'll leave it there on the conspiracy to build the Australian Crypto Convention and a new all-time high. All thanks to Dave Haslop. All right, mate. Thank you so much for joining me.
No worries. Thanks, Matt. Hey, one question for you. November 2025, what's the price of Bitcoin going to be?
Ooh, November 2025. Well, it has to be an all-time high because we're going to make that happen. So I'm going to say it's going to be 150.
Me too. That's exactly what I thought. 150 to 170. Yeah.
Okay. Why are you going so low? Yeah, 170. Let's go.
150 to 170. That's my range that I'm aiming for November.
Wouldn't it be awesome? And also, hopefully, we have no tax on crypto. There we go. Not that I'm selling. I'm holding, everyone. I'm holding Bitcoin.
Me too. I'm not selling. Never sell your Bitcoin. Never sell your Bitcoin.
There you go. You've heard it from the man himself, Dave Haslop. Thanks so much, Dave. Take it easy. Cheers. Thanks for tuning in to Crypto Collective. If you've enjoyed this episode, the best way to show your support is to leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcast or Spotify, and make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel so you don't miss an episode. You can also find more of me at I'm Matthew Fraser on all social media platforms.